it is at the moment, I keep banging my finger on the clapperboard. Oh well. So, welcome to this week's rant. It is Valentine's Day, it's the 14th of February. So I hope those of you who are being Valentine are doing something very nice. The housemates and I are just going to have a nice dinner. That's about as far as it goes. We did have a Valentine's twerking competition last night, which was probably more to do with the amount of alcohol that we were consuming rather than anything else, but it was quite hilarious, and it is on film, but I'm not going to put it on the channel. Anyway, this week's rant is called I Put It All Up for Sale. And all will become clear in a minute. But before we get going, normal parish notices must be observed. So guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you're watching this video, subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe icon. If you want to be notified when content about keyboards, you know, things like this thing, I've got to put it down gently now, are published on the channel, hit the bell icon. If you like the contents of the video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps the video. Drop comments down below. I do read them. I sometimes make videos about them. And finally, down there somewhere lurking is the address of the TMTG community. Sponsor the channel, support the production of videos for less than the price of a cup of coffee. But now, back to the video. Up for sale. No, I'm not selling everything, so don't get worried. I'm not selling up just yet. But before we get on with that, if you hear like a motor whirring on the audio of this, that's not because there is a motor whirring, it's the autofocus on the camera. And I haven't been able to yet work out how to get the autofocus on the camera to work correctly. Because what it does effectively, I'm looking at the screen now and it's tracking my face. And if I move backwards and forwards, the autofocus is tracking, which is what it's meant to do. But I'm not sure, and that's the noise you're hearing. So I apologise for that. I'm still working on setting this camera up. I know I've had it a few weeks, but I really haven't done that much videoing with it yet. So that's what the noise is. Anyway, back to up for sale. So it's not me, it's a guy called Tom Hulkenberg. And about 6 weeks before Christmas, Tom put a video on his YouTube channel saying, I'm selling everything. Which is quite a surprise, but that's what he stated. And I've actually seen stuff actually starting to flow across things like Reverb. He's not using eBay as far as I can tell. A lot of stuff is coming up on his Reverb channel. And it's being sold that way. But in a nutshell, he's selling the lot. And if you look at Tom's YouTube channel, you will see that he has pretty much every iconic synth that you have heard about for the last 30 to 40 years. He has it. He has the Junos, he has the Jupiters, he has the Akai samplers, he has the Roland samplers, he has the Korg analog synths, he has the Korg digital synths. He's got all of them. And what he stated on a channel a while ago was he started collecting when he was about 12. And that has led to this sort of massive collection. He started when he was 12, in about 1979, in the Netherlands, which is where he comes from. And his, I suppose his way of getting into this was he sort of formed an alliance with a local music store. And when the likes of you and I went running into said music store back in the day and said, I need the latest and greatest, shiniest synth, and traded their old synth in, Tom would buy from the owner the old synth. And that's where his collection of synthesizers and his love of synthesizers has come from. And let's face it, you know, he's now a sought after Hollywood musical director and producer for major motion pictures. So he hasn't done too bad out of it, out of a love that sort of turned into a business and a career. But that's where it started. The funniest thing about doing videos or when I'm doing videos, is I tend to use my fingers for rubbing out the take numbers on the clapperboard. Yes, I do use a clapperboard with take numbers, and I end up getting blue fingers. Anyway, unless you've been living on the moon, you would probably have come across Tom Hulkenberg or Junkie XL in some form or another, either writing dance music or, as I said, writing scores for major motion pictures. In 2002, he was the one responsible for the remix of the Elvis Presley classic "A Little Less Conversation." You know, a little less conversation, a little more action. Okay, I'm not going to sing because I've got an awful voice. Which was a very clever dance track, and loads of people, I can remember, I still know some people who do, actually have that as their ringtone on their mobile phone. But that was kind of his career, so he was very cleverly done that, probably earned him a lot of money, and probably sort of moved him into the sort of the upper leagues of being this sort of producer. Tom himself was classically trained. Tom's mother was classically trained, and he learned the piano from a very early age. So, you know, a lot of good keyboard players come from some sort of classical training. I know I never did, and I'm not a great keyboard player. But he's also learnt the guitar and the bass before the age of 17. And then at 17 he got the aforementioned job in a local music store where he lived in the Netherlands. And if you look at his sort of work, his work ranges from punk to hardcore metal, dance units, acting as both the producer and the writer for the material. So not only was he getting the writing credits, he was getting the production credits as well. If you don't know what movies he's worked for, here are a couple of classic ones. So he co-composed or composed the music for Blade, The Dark Knight, The Justice League, Deadpool, so I'm sure you've heard some of those. He's composed for numerous video games. And finally, in 2003, he decided to up sticks from where he was living at the time, which I think he was kind of split between the Netherlands and somewhere else, and lock, stock and barrel moved to Los Angeles. So that was 2003. So that's a very brief potted history of who Tom Hulkenberg is. So why is Tom selling his synth collection? Well, this is a good question. So he's got all the classics, I said. He's got the 808s, the 909s, the Jupiters, 8, 4 and 6. He's got many samplers, many digital synths, many analog synths, many hybrid synths. He has a collection that is envious. That's the bottom line. It is envious. And he quotes two reasons for selling the synths. And this is the reason why I wanted to highlight this on the channel. A, he's simply not using them. And I think that is a crime. If you've got something, you don't use it. You know, because you watch the channel, that I rotate stuff, or I used to rotate stuff all the time, in and out. So I was using a lot of my machines, and everything got taken out of storage at least once a year and used, if not put back. And then there were certain synthesizers that were my favorite go-to synthesizers, and they're the ones that were sitting on the racks all the time, or on the stacks. So that's the first one, and I completely understand that. If you're not using it, you look at those racks and think, although I probably wouldn't sit and think how much money have I got tied up in those, but some people would sit and think how much money have I got tied up in these things that I'm not using. And the second one is, and I kind of get this one as well, which is he says he gets distracted by the amount of choice he has. So when we're talking about this, if you've got half a dozen ways of putting the drum machine down on your door for your track, which drum machine do you look for? Which one are you going to use? And I think that's probably half the issue that he's finding himself is. He is in a space where he has to work to production timetables, and he was saying that he just finds it distracting having too much choice. I can get that. If that's how you work, then having lots of different ways of doing stuff sometimes can distract you. And I think one of the other things that actually sort of kind of bleeds into this now is the whole VST story. You know, you can get these synths as VSTs, as plug outs, as whatever you want to call it, and you can load them. If you look at the new Phantom engines that are now available through the Roland Cloud, you can see that a lot of those legacy machines are now available through an engine that Roland have made available on the cloud for doing such things. So I fully get the reason why he's selling up. Now the question is, would I think they're good reasons for selling up myself? I think where I am at the moment, the answer is no, I don't. Do I think it might be forced on me at some point? Yes, I think possibly it may be forced on me. Depends on what happens from where I am now. So you guys know that I'm pretty much broke. I lost a lot of money in the last couple of years in terms of fighting a divorce I didn't want to fight. So that leaves me with the question of where do I go next? What's next? This is the year of healing for me, and I have to sort of think about what's going to happen next. Where am I going next? How long am I going to be living here? There's no issue about living here. We all get along. We haven't killed each other yet, and we've been locked down for a year, and hopefully that's going to get better this year, so we won't kill each other this year either. But we have been kind of, what happens next is kind of in my mind, and I don't know what the answer is. So wherever I go from here to somewhere else, I may be forced to actually downsize because I just won't have the space for the instruments I've got. That's definitely a possibility. But I think there's two things that people should bear in mind when you consider whether you're going to sell something. And these are the things that I kind of think about, looking at where Tom is and his situation. The first one I always think about here is, am I using it, or is it something that doesn't work for me? Now, I have bought keyboards in the past, and I've sold keyboards in the past because I can't get on with them. Either they don't work the way I work, or I can't get used to the way the sound banks work, or it just doesn't flow for me. And I can think of the one that I really struggled with from day dot, and a part of it was M Audio, because this was a controller, this was a surface for a door. Part of it was M Audio, and part of it was the keyboard just seemed illogically set up to me. It didn't work for me in terms of how you worked with the keyboard itself. And I ended up selling that. I tried and I tried with it because it was a great solution for travelling. So I could sling this thing in the boot of the car and get to my destination, and then when I was holed up in a hotel, when I was travelling a lot of the time, I could just take this thing up and play it. That was the game plan. It didn't work like that. I couldn't get on with it, so I got rid of it. I could think of the rolly up keyboard. Couldn't get on with that, so I got rid of that. And I can think of a couple of other synthesizers that I've had over the years that I just couldn't get on with, so I got rid of them. I'd sold them on to somebody else who could try and work with them. I think it's one of the key things, and maybe I'll do a video on keyboard user interface, because the people who design keyboards are not the people who play keyboards, and that in a lot of instances is very obvious. But we'll come on to that as a separate story. So his whole raison d'etre for this is he's not using them, fair enough, and it's distracting him from focusing on what he needs to do, which is meet the deadlines for the projects he's working on. And I can get that as well. So fair play, Tom. I don't think it's a decision I would have made, especially given the size of your collection. So are you going to grab yourself a bargain? and I don't think you are. I think Tom has said that he's going to be fair in his pricing, but he's not going to give it away. So what I would say is, if you see one of Tom's machines instruments come up on Reverb or another channel, and you can verify it is Tom Holkenberg selling them, you won't get a bargain, but what you will get, and I guarantee this, is you'll get a machine that has been meticulously maintained over the years. It will work, and it will work probably not far off how it worked in the factory. So that's what you're going to get. If you are going to go and buy something from Tom's collection, well done. I don't think I'll be buying anything from Tom's collection, because I don't think everything I want will be far too expensive and I haven't got any money, as you well know. So until next week, live long and prosper. Bye bye.